Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. How are you guys doing tonight? Hope you're doing well. My name is Lee Love, and I am photographer, director, and educator, and of course with the photomentors.tv site. And I want to welcome you tonight. We do this every Friday night at 9 p.m. I had a few little technical glitches, which is, what do you expect on all this stuff? You saw the setup here, I assume. And but for some reason, I couldn't get the stream running on Facebook. Don't know why. Anyway, I think we're okay now, and we should also be available on YouTube. I'm not positive about that one, though. So anyway, thank you again for joining me. And like I said, we're here every Friday night. We weren't here last week. A couple of personal things that happened that were really not easy to share. I'm not even sure I want to go into it, quite honestly, but I'll just give you a little glimpse or a little tip of what happened. We had to have our cat Bobby, we called him, put to sleep, and that was really, really tough on me. He was definitely my cat, and so that was difficult. And if that wasn't bad enough, being a guy, I came home and after taking him to the vet in the morning and not wanting to really talk to anybody, so I decided to do some yard work, put my heart into some physical labor, mowing and weed eating and all that. And I was on top of a 15-foot ladder. And of course the ladder slipped and I fell on my back and cracked 2 of my vertebrae. So I'm wearing a brace here and I'm in not too much pain right now, but it's been a tough week, believe me. So anyway, that's what's going on. That's why we weren't here last week. But we'll do the best we can, struggle through it, and hopefully it'll still be beneficial to you and you'll learn something. That's the most important thing. That's why we do this. People do ask me why I bother to put this together and record the videos and stuff like that. And it's because, frankly, I get frustrated. I get frustrated at seeing incorrect answers and inadequate answers and just wrong information just disseminated to new photographers. So I've kind of dedicated myself to helping new photographers get the right information, accurate information, and to mentor them, frankly, to help them to become better photographers and to enjoy photography more. So that's really what this is all about. My advice is based on my own experience. I've been doing this a long, long time, longer than I want to admit. So everything comes from things that I've done personally or worked on, my own experience. But always check with somebody, check a grain of salt, my ideas and my suggestions with somebody else, see what works for you. Same with anybody else. Don't take just one person's view. And I think you'll be good if you do that. Let's see here. So I think, so we're going to do some question and answers tonight. We've got a lot of good questions. If you want to leave a question, a live question, and ask that on the show, you should be able to, again, I'm not sure about the Facebook, the YouTube page, but if you go to facebook.photomentor.tv, hopefully if you're watching this, then you already know, and you're there. So in the comments section, just put a capital Q and a colon in front of your question, and it'll pop up here on my screen, and I'll be able to see what questions you have, and I'll do my best to try and answer them. If you are you watching this on the replay and you have questions, just go ahead and send an email to help@photomentor.tv, and I'll add them to the show next week, or I'll reply and answer them directly. So if you have a question, feel free to let me know. Okay, let's see here. So tonight I'm going to start off a little bit different than normally. We're not going to dive right into questions, but we're going to get into some other stuff. There's I'm really big on trying to promote photographers to learning to see and to look at the art side of photography, not just the technical. I know the technical is difficult for a lot of people. I know it's overwhelming, believe me. And it's probably the biggest stumbling block that people have in getting into photography. Although, frankly, it's really, really easy compared to the way it used to be. But still, I know people have that problem. And so I thought maybe I'd share with you tonight some information about a famous photographer. His name is Elliott Erwitt. You can look him up. He's been doing this for many, many decades. and he's really well known. He's considered a master photographer. And one of the things that I think is interesting about one of his quotes, and I think it's appropriate, and that is, it says, "To me, photography is the art of observation. It's about finding something interesting in an ordinary place." And I absolutely agree with that. I know a lot of people want to travel and go to the Grand Canyon or some famous place and take photos. Frankly, I think it's easy to get amazing pictures when you go to places like that. But it's very, very difficult, and it really stretches your imagination and your talent and skill to be able to make interesting photos in your own backyard. So I would encourage you to try and do that, and to spend more time photographing things around you that are common that you may overlook, that you can show in a different and unique way. And again, so what Elliott goes on to say, that I found it, it has little to do with the things you see and everything to do with the way you see them. So here's one of his photos, which I think is pretty cute. And if you look at it, it's nothing. I mean, it's nothing technically special. If you look at it, some people could say, "Oh, it's noisy," or "It's this or that." Maybe I would have cropped it differently, et cetera, et cetera. But as you can see, he had an eye. He saw this picture, and he immediately knew the angle to get down and shoot it at. If he would have shot high, it wouldn't have worked. Or if it had been a larger picture, in other words, showing everybody. But just the feet alone really makes the picture work. And so I thought this would be a good example tonight to start off with, to encourage you to try and look and see a little differently, instead of just from the normal perspective that you normally do. And the nice thing is, you can do this even without a camera. You don't have to have a camera with you to be able to teach yourself to see. But anyway, so I thought we'd start off by that. And I thought that'd be a good way to kind of get things rolling, and to encourage you to develop your what I call active seeing, the ability to look and take pictures even without a camera. I'm always taking pictures. I'm always looking. Light's interesting. I'm studying light, or I'm looking at something I may want to come back and use this location for another shoot or something like that. I'm always looking for photos, and I'm always taking photos, even though I don't necessarily have a camera with me. And I encourage you to try and do the same. Okay, so let's see what we got here tonight. I probably didn't cue this up right. Let's see. Yep, I didn't. Let me hang on here. Let's go to okay, so the first question we have tonight is from Abby Button. And Abby says, "Does anyone not edit their photos, or is it a requirement in photography now? I used to do film that I developed in a dark room, so the editing stuff is foreign to me." Okay, well, Abby, I certainly understand the editing being foreign, but what I will say is, yes, you do have to edit your photos. And the reason I say that is, we're not copy machines. Your camera is not a photocopier. And there's a lot of discussions about this. I know people that consider themselves purists, don't want to touch their images, and we can debate that all night long. But the point is that a camera is just a capture device. It's not the entire process. So any decision you make in taking a photo is editing. So for example, where you stand, high, low, eye line, up, down, the lens you select, that's editing. That's making an editorial choice. Where you stand in reference to the subject, that's editing. So the capture is just really a small part of the process. It is a big part, but it's only one part of the process. So you're already editing. But the thing is if I think, again, most people know Ansel Adams' work. Ansel Adams says that the negative is comparable to the composer's score, and the print to its performance. Each performance differs in subtle ways. So what is he saying here? This is probably his most famous photo. It's called Moon Hernandez. And the story behind this one photo is, he saw this picture, he stopped the car, he jumped out, took out his 8x10 camera, and set it up in a hurry to be able to get this one photo. And he didn't have a light meter. He didn't have his light meter with him. So he looked at the moon, and he had some calculations which he knew the reflection of the moon would typically be, and he got one frame off. Then he went to put another slide in of 8x10 film, and the light was gone. That was it. He only got one frame. And when he got back to the darkroom and processed it, he found that the negative was really not a very good negative. It was difficult to print. It was, I believe it was, if I remember right, it was very thin, very, it wasn't exposed exactly properly. In fact, there's a book I saw, which is great, which shows over the years the different prints that he made with this on this negative, and how he tried to refine it and refine it and refine it. And finally, he got one that he was happy with. But the point of what he's trying to make here is that the camera is just half the battle. The other half is the negative, the print. And the darkroom is an editing process. You burn, you dodge, you burn, you do lots of things to bring out an image, even in the film days. So film is not pure, nothing pure about it, in fact. And so there is editing involved. It's a two-step process, the capture and the processing. I look at post-processing nowadays as the other half of an image. I'll take an image, I'll get a group of images, I'll import them into the computer, I'll take a look real quick just to make sure they're all there and everything. But the way I like to do it is I actually won't look at them for about a week, and then if I can, and then a week later I'll come back, I have a fresh perspective on them, and then I can decide what I want that image to say and how it makes me feel. Does I want to make it warmer, cooler? Oh, maybe I cropped it too wide. Maybe I want to put focus on this part of that part by cropping the image. The point is, the editing is the other half of the process. And it would be like writing a novel. Who would write a novel all in one, write out the novel and hand it in? Okay, my book's done. No, it's an editing process. Goes through, the editor looks at it, says, well, this character's not really defined well. Can you go back and tweak this? And photography is no different. Editing is part of the process and should be considered that. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people think, especially new photographers, that editing is fixing the process. That, oh, if I mess up and I can shoot in RAW, and if I mess up, I can fix it in post. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, you want to try and get it as perfect as possible in the camera. Saves you hours and hours of work. And then use your editing to bring out the subtlety, the aspect of the image of where you want to direct the viewer's eye. So anyway, that's Abby's question, and that would be my answer, is to, yes, you do need to do some post-processing, you need to do some editing to finish your vision of what that picture should look like. Okay, so the next one is by Amber, and Amber says, my 5-year-old son spent all day taking photos, which is kind of interesting, and I went to import them and somehow accidentally deleted everything from the card before importing. Is there anything I can do? This is a very common problem, Amber, and there's a lot of choices out there, a lot of software out there. I haven't used all these programs, but this is a list of the ones. The one I've used here, the second one here, called Disk Drill, and it's available for Windows or Mac. And this is the one I've used, and it works really, really well. But these others may just be as good. I don't know. I'm not as familiar with them. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that if you do something like this and you get in a situation where you do delete the files, take the card out. Don't do anything with it. Don't put anything on it. Don't erase it. Don't add anything to it until you're ready to go in and try and run your recovery software. Typically, as long as the software can read the card. I've had situations where the cards themselves are damaged, probably internally, and so it doesn't even show up as a drive at all. But as long as it shows up, even if there's no photos displaying it, then usually the software will recover it. Also be aware that you're probably going to get a lot of images recovered. So the way it works is when you delete a file from a card or disk, it doesn't actually delete the file. It just deletes the name in or the catalog or the directory. And so then it doesn't show up. So the file's there, but the directory or the pointer to it is not there. And that's what this software does. It goes back and rebuilds it. So it may also rebuild files that are partially there. So be aware that you're going to get a lot of weird stuff when you do this. And it may not just be the last stuff that you want to get. The good thing is, the way most of the software works is it'll go out and try and find everything, but then it'll sort it by date, and you can then look at it and see if those are the images that you really want to recover. And it sometimes can recover partial files. So if it's a really old file and it's been written over partially, you may not get all of it back. But if it's just the stuff your son did right there on the spot, and you've recognized it right away, you should be able to get it back without any problem. Okay, let's see what else we got here. So Denver asks, there are a lot of photographers around you, but what do you do to offer your client that others don't? What a great question. Well, that's a long one and a great question. First of all, I would say you're really trying. Look, we're all different. We're all unique. We all bring something different to being photographer. Two photographers can be right next to each other with the same camera, photographing the same subject, and they will be two totally different pictures. Why? Because we see differently. We approach things differently. And so what you're trying to get to, this is a gem, and it's really something that most people don't talk about, because it's a little esoteric in some ways. But as a photographer, you're trying to find out what's unique about you and how you see the world. So my work is a lot of advertising work and magazines. And so people will come to me ideally and look at me and they'll say, hey, Lee, we've got this project we want to shoot. It's so-and-so product, whatever. And here's what we're thinking. They'll give me a concept. Well, how would you shoot this? This is the perfect place I want to be. I don't want them to call me when they say, hey, we got this ad campaign we're going to do, and here's the shots, and here's some samples of what we want it to look like. Can you shoot this? Basically, you're a button pusher then. Nobody wants to be in that kind of job. What I want is to be there early on and give my creative input. And so I'll look at the project, and I'll say, well, I would probably approach it this way. I would shoot it this way. Maybe we want to shoot it here. Maybe we want to include this. That's what you're trying to bring to your photography. You're trying to bring your background, your experience, your unique view of the world. Now, I'm not talking about getting goofy and, being unique, going, turning the camera sideways and trying to be and fake it. I'm talking about really just working the craft and continuing to shoot and shoot and shoot. And that will eventually evolve your own style. Now, I'll tell you, quite honestly, it's very difficult to develop a style, I believe. It took me a long time. Because when you start, you don't really know exactly what kind of stuff you like to shoot. And so you'll try everything. But after a while, you'll start to hone down. You'll go back, and the thing to do is go back and look at your work over a period of time, a year, 2 years, whatever, and look at it and look for commonalities. So, wow, I notice I always shoot at this eye line, or I notice I always like a wide angle lens versus a telephoto. And so you'll start to see things that you do subconsciously with your photography, and that is how you start to develop your style. You can look at other people's work, which, I don't suggest you compare yourself to other people's work. It's only about your own work and comparing against your own progress. But you want to be able to look at that and see over time how that's evolving. Like, let me get an example. I have friends of mine, and my wife especially is also one. She'll bring me a photo, and she'll say, "Wow, see, just look at this picture." She goes, "This looks like something you would have shot." I'm like, "Really?" She goes, "Oh yeah, that's definitely your style." And I find that interesting because sometimes other people can recognize your style, maybe even before you can, which is, this is kind of interesting. So anyway, so it just takes a long time to develop a style and to figure out what you like to shoot. But you have to continue to shoot to be able to make that evolve. And I don't know of any way to compress that time in developing that style. Maybe you can develop early. Maybe if you're lucky enough to develop that style early and recognize it. But for me, it took a while, and I think it's just something that happens for a lot of photographers. So anyway, that's the point. The answer to the question of Denver's question is you're trying to get people to hire you. There are a lot of people that have people can go out and buy the same camera you have, even better. Okay. And they're actually better photographers than you are. But what you want to get is to a point where people say, I love the way you did that photo for so-and-so. Oh, that was so clever. That was so interesting. I love the way you did it. Can you do that for me? And so you want to develop that style. So that's what they're hiring you for. They're hiring you for your style, not for your button pushing capability. Make sense? I hope so. And you can ask questions on that if you have more, email, or and I'll be glad to expand on that if possible. Okay. So Paula says, hey, you guys, do you have a client sign a paper to be able to post some picture on your page? All right. Well, now, first of all, the disclaimer is I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. I don't play an attorney on the internet. So I'm just going to give you my experience, but you should check on this. But I can tell you one thing that is for sure. As soon as you push the button on that camera, that photo is yours and it belongs to you, and it's copyright. It's your copyrighted work. Okay, there's nothing you have. You can submit it to the and then we can go into that some other time. I think one of previous shows we talked about this. You can submit it to the U.S. Copyright Office and that type of things. But the point is, it's still yours and it's copyrighted by you. So you don't have to do anything. Now, there could be an issue with a client not wanting, if it's children or something, not wanting you to publish that. But you have every right to do whatever you want with those pictures. Now, the mistake I think people make is they think that because someone hired you, that they can control what happens to the pictures. And that is not the case. What happens is when they hire you, what they are doing is they are licensing the images. They are not owning the images. And I don't know how to make that any clearer. But people say, well, I hired you for $500. These are my photos. No, they're not your photos. They're photos for your use, your own personal use, but you can't take them and resell them. Every one of my contracts and everything I ever do with anybody says these photos are for their use. They're not allowed to be resold or transferred to ownership to anybody else without my permission. So I've had situations, for example, where let's say you do interior design, or I did some magazine work for a company, and it was they were interiors, really expensive location. And so what happens is the developer or whoever uses those photos, well, one of the people that make the flooring, for example, would come and say, oh, wow, look, can we use those photos to display our flooring? Well, no, you can't. Well, but it happens, so you got to protect yourself against that. So what happens is they'll say, oh, yeah, sure, no problem, because they're trying to get in good with the flooring guys. But the point is, I own those pictures. The price was designed for that developer for their use, not for other people's use. They can't sell it to Nike and be using it for something else, for example. So the point I'm trying to make here is that I know I'm getting off topic a little bit. I apologize, but it's an important topic. And here's an analogy I use. If you download a song from iTunes and you buy that song for 99 cents, do you own it? No, you don't. You licensed it to be able to use it yourself for your own self, but you can't go play it publicly. You can't go out and make a movie and use that song just because you paid 99 cents for it. That's a completely different licensing system. And that's exactly the same way with your work. And it's important that you educate your clients so they understand that. Now, whether you publish it on a website or that's up to you. But the way I look at it and the way I work, it's my work, and I'm going to use that work to promote my own business. And so therefore, I own the rights to be able to do what I want with that photo. And so that you don't need to have anything, in my opinion, again, first of all, anybody can sue you for anything. Doesn't matter if you're right, wrong, or indifferent. The point is that, though, I think they're not going to have much of a leg to stand on because it's your photo, you own them, you took them. Now, here's the exception. Let's say it's called, what do they call it? It's called a work for hire situation. That's different. Work for hire is a situation where you're maybe an employee. Maybe you work for a company and they know you have a nice camera. They'll say, hey, can you bring your camera in and take some pictures of the employees for our website? Yeah, sure. I'll be glad to do that, right? You want to do that. You want to ingratiate yourself. The problem is that that's a situation where that's work for hire. You're already getting paid. You work for that employee. You're doing the photos. That's separate. They own the rights to those photos then. That's not the same as if you're doing it separately and they're just paying you for the photo. So anyway, again, we could go into a lot of detail on that. I don't want to spend too much time on it. That wasn't my intention, but I just want to give you some insight into and to how the copyright. I'm working with a copyright attorney. I'm looking to have them come on this show or one of the other shows I'm working on to answer those kinds of questions. Okay, so let's see here. Next one is Allison says, I tried Lightroom, wasn't impressed. It slowed my computer down way too much. Any other editing programs you recommend? Good question. I hear this one a lot. Two things are going on here. Number one, you're going to need a decent computer. You don't need some super high-end $3,000 gaming machine, but you need a decent computer. A laptop will work fine, whether it's Lightroom or something else. The other thing to keep in mind is more memory, more RAM is the key to doing editing on a computer. So you want to have as much memory as you can in there, not disk memory. I'm not talking about that kind. You can always add external disk, but I'm talking about the internal RAM memory. So if you have an option of getting another machine and you're looking at the cost, and there's an issue maybe even having a slightly slower CPU but more memory, go for the more memory over the faster CPU. You'll get more performance that way. So one of the programs that I like, and I don't know that it's going to be any faster, quite honestly, would be something. It's a program called Luminar, and I really like this program a lot. And I find that it's pretty darn good. It will do a lot of stuff, and it's free. The thing I like about it is it's inexpensive. In other words, I think it's $59 or $79, $89 at the most, and it will allow you to go through. And first of all, you own it, and where Lightroom you're just renting. That's another thing to keep in mind with the Adobe software now. You don't own the software. It's only as long as you pay them, you're renting the software. This has artificial intelligence. You can replace the sky. It does an amazing job on the sky. I mean, just back this up because it's worth showing you again here. How well it works. I'm really surprised at how easy it works. And you can just pick. It has a number of skies, and it just does a great cutout. It also will allow you to do retouching on a face, which is something that's desperately needed a lot of times. There's some software out there I've used that does this, but it's over the top, and I find this is subtle enough that you can go through and put the kind of, just take some of the blemishes and stuff like that out without having to go crazy on it. So anyway, Luminar 4 is the program that I would recommend you take a look at and see what you think about this. These are some samples of where they're enhancing some images. The nice thing is a trial. You can download it. You can see what you think about it. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, yeah, that's right. Object removal. I forgot about that. That's pretty cool. Anyway, so that's Luminar 4 is one that you might want to take a look at. Okie dokie. Let's see what else we got here. Again, if you have any other questions you want to ask, be sure and just put a Q in front of your question, and that way it'll show up here in my software automatically. Okie doke. Let's see here. This one, okay, this is the Lightroom. So the next one is from Penny. And Penny says, I decided to buy a DSLR camera, but now I'm wondering whether a mirrorless one is better instead for taking close-up shots of wildlife. The short answer is no. It doesn't matter, Penny. It's all about technique. It's not about the camera. Now, there are certain cameras that have higher frame rates, maybe or that type of thing. But as long as you have a camera with interchangeable lenses, then that's really would be the deciding factor, because if you're talking about wildlife, now it says close-up shots of wildlife. I assume what you mean is you're not asking about macro work, meaning like butterflies and plants. You're talking about, buffalo and wild animals and stuff, lions and tigers and bears and things. And so there, as long as you have a camera with an interchangeable lens, you're fine. It's the trick is you're going to need big glass. You're going to need a big lens, and for birding or for stuff like that. I think you're going to find in the Canon line or in the Nikon line, they make a 200 to 500, which is pretty reasonable. About $1,400, which some people may think it's a lot, but boy, when you consider that typically a 500 millimeter lens, a prime f4, I think ran around $9,000, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I forgot. So anyway, but the Sigma and Tamron make a 150 to 600, and Nikon makes a 200 to 500, and I think Canon also has a 200 to 500 as well. I know they have a 100 to 400. So anyway, so that is going to be the key to doing wildlife, and you're going to need a decent tripod. because those things get hit. Even the lenses are fairly light, but still they get heavy. And so you're going to want to make sure you can take care of that. So that's the deal. So no, it doesn't matter if you have mirrorless or not. The deal with mirrorless, and I'm not really a good person to ask because I shoot both, but my mirrorless work is typically for video, and my still work, I still use an SLR. Now, maybe I'm old school. I don't know. I like, though, when I hold that up to my eye and I'm looking through it, I want to be able to see exactly the same thing. So I can look at your eyes. I can see if they're open, closed, whatever. Whereas a mirrorless camera, you're looking at a TV screen essentially back there. And so it's a representation of what you're looking at. For me, I don't find I need that. Like I said, for video, it's fine, but I prefer SLR for still photography. But that's just me. You'll get some benefits, focus peaking and some things like that from mirrorless. But that's, I don't think, people say, oh, it's lighter. Well, it's a little bit of a myth. They can be sometimes lighter, but a 70 to 200 2.8 is still a 70 to 200 2.8, even if it's on a mirrorless camera or a DSLR. So the lenses themselves, they've gotten some smaller. They're reducing the size on a few of them nowadays, but overall they're the same size lenses. So that's not really a big thing. Okay. All right. So the next one is, if I had the opportunity, would you accept a job in this field, or would you rather keep it as a personal passion? Ooh, that's a good one. That's a real good one. The problem with making your hobby your job, guilty as charged, by the way, is it's still a business. Now, I don't want to discourage anybody. Let me make clear that the stuff I'm going to share with you about this is not intended to, just not tell you to do this. If you want to do this as a job, then go ahead and do it. But just be aware of, it is a job. It's no different than any other job. Typically, we get into photography as a career because we just love to take pictures. Oh, I love to take pictures. I wish I could do this all the time. Well, here's the sad truth. The sad truth is that it's 80% business and 20% photography. I shoot a lot less now than when I'm shooting for myself. So that's why, if you are doing this as a job, it's very, very important for you to do personal work. So even if you're doing client work, you should always have your own personal projects that you're working on. You want to make sure that those are available, and there are things in your head that you want to shoot, get other people involved, makeup artists, whatever, models, etc. Because that's your vision. Those are the projects you're developing. That's not client work. And so I spent a lot of time doing things like proposals and invoicing and model releases and hiring and taxes and marketing. And that's really, it has to be done. If you're going to do this as a business, you have to get that stuff out of the way. And so that's why it sounds like it's a great job. All I do is go out and shoot pictures all day long, but that's not the way it works. The other thing about the difference between a pro and a hobbyist, a lot of people will say, oh, I'm just an amateur. I'll say, look, that doesn't mean anything. I know some amateurs that are just amazing photographers, better photographers than I am. Okay. It has nothing to do with whether your quality of your work. What is different between a professional and a hobbyist is the consistency. If you're working as a job and you're a pro, then you've got to perform. You've got to produce. Nobody cares that it's raining outside or there's something going on or whatever, or something broke on set. You're a pro. They're paying you money to get this done. So consistency is a really big difference between professional and a hobbyist. A hobbyist can say, oh, it's raining outside. It's overcast. I don't think I'm going to, we'll do sunrise tomorrow, the next day. Sunrise won't be very good or whatever. So it is kind of tough. And so you have to be aware of that. So you got to be flexible. Boy, I could tell you the stories until the cows come home about situations where I've gone on set. Like I did a job where I was for Audi Corporation, Audi, the car guys. And I got there 3 days ahead of time. I did photos. I sent them to the ad agency. They looked at them and said, oh, yeah, okay, this is what we want. Shoot from here, blah, 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 blah. And I got there the day of the shoot. and there was something in the way. And it was a big glass case, and they couldn't move the car that we were going to be photographing. So I'm up against the wall like this, having to try and shoot this picture. I got it done, but I did one shoot where I was photographing. I think it was the youngest editorial writer, I think, for the New York Times. I forgot his exact position. And I got there an hour and a half ahead of time. It was down in the district. I got there and I'm waiting and called his office. I had the receptionist call his office. He wasn't there. I waited. So it got about an hour. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I have a cell phone. I'll call his cell phone. I called him and said, oh, okay. He said, hey, where are you? I said, I'm out here in the lobby. He says, oh, okay, I'll be right out. And he got me out here. I drug all my equipment out there. I had lights. I was actually shooting on medium format Hasselblad that I was going to do, and I'm setting everything up. And he says to me, well, how long do you think this will take? I said, 30, 45 minutes. He goes, oh, I got to pick up my daughter in 15 minutes. Okay, plan B. So I immediately scrapped the ideas I had when I walked in. I shot. I did this. Okay, let's do this. I had to think on my feet. They had three areas they wanted shot. Boom, boom, boom. Did the shoot. Got out of there. Got him out of there in 15 minutes. And he was happy, and the magazine was happy. The magazine actually loved the pictures. They were great. They thought they were great. I didn't really care that much for them because I didn't get to work on my concept I had. But the point is, that's the job. That's the difference between doing this as a professional and doing this for a hobby. You're a problem solver. Your job, I tell this all the time. Photography professionally is not about taking pretty pictures. It's about solving a problem. A client has a problem. Our job is there to solve it. So the thing is, you can't really. So I got a little video here. I was thinking about this. I dug this up. I thought you guys might like to see this. This is a short, I don't know how long it was, maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And it was a couple of years ago when I was doing a magazine shoot. It was in winter. It was cold. I was soaked. It was down at in the district where there's no place to park. So I have to park way the heck away, lug all my equipment over to where the shoot is in front of the Supreme Court. It was just miserable. I was just not happy. But it reminded me, and as you'll hear me say in the video, this is what being a professional photographer is all about. Okay, it's 36 degrees out here, I think, and it's raining. It's been raining all day. Good crowds. But I'm standing here in front of the Supreme Court on assignment for a magazine. And if you ever want to be a professional photographer, this might be what you want to think about. It's not all fun. It's not all glamorous. It's miserable. I'm cold. It's raining, and I'm soggy. Sorry about the audio. There's a little loud. So that's it. That's what the job's all about. And there's many times that's the case. When I was covering the 2008 elections as a photojournalist, I get there at 4:30 in the morning to go through and set up, go through security, Secret Service, taking all your stuff apart, dogs sniffing everything. Anyway, the point is, it's a job. That's all. I don't know how else to say it any than that. It's just a job. So keep that in mind. But it's a great job. I know I'm making it sound awful, but it's not. It's really a terrific career. It's just different, and so you really have to want to do it and be passionate about it, because a lot of times the business part gets in the way. Okie dokie. Let's see here. Let's go back. I'm sure, Scott, I answered that question. Okay, so this question is more gear related. And again, if you guys have any questions, be sure and put them in the comments section. Put a Q in front of them so they show up, and it'll pop up here on my software. Okay, so Ashley asked, does anyone use both the Canon 35mm 1.4L and the 35mm, and the Sigma Art 35 1.4? I have not used either one of those, but is there a major difference, she asked. I thought I'd just give you a couple of plus and minuses. I have shot a number of the Sigma Art lenses, and they're fantastic glass. They just really, really are. A lot of times they're heavier. I've noticed they're a bigger piece of glass, and I guess has something to do with why they're able to get such good quality out of them. But any of the Sigma Art lenses, I highly recommend. They're fantastic. If you ever want to see one and just kind of get a glimpse, next time you go to a store that sells Sigma, Ask them if they have a 105 1.4. It's not a macro lens, it's just a 1.5 1.4 lens on display that you can look at. The thing is a monster. It is heavy, it is huge, and I would not want to carry it around. But the images that come out of it are just unbelievably beautiful. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous lens. Now, so one thing I like about the Sigma glass is that it tends to have a little more contrast, and it also tends to, colors seem to be a little bit punchier, I've noticed. And that's one thing I like about that. It's very similar to the Zeiss lenses. Because Zeiss, a lot of people don't know, Zeiss also make lenses for Sony and Canon and Nikon and things like that. And those lenses are just beautiful. But the Sigma reminds me a lot of that. The mechanical feel of them are really, really nice, really well built. And the other thing about the Sigma that I like is it has a docking station you can buy. I want to say it's $59. It's not very expensive. You can put it on the back, and then it will, through software, you can go through and actually update the lens or tweak the lens. So if it's back focusing or there's a problem, a lot of times you can do this yourself without having to send the lens in. And that's kind of nice. The other thing is about the docking station. I'm sorry, not about the docking station, but about that surprises me about the Canon glass. Everybody knows Canon glass is good. There's nothing wrong with it, of course. But I find it odd that they only offer a 1-year warranty, and Sigma's a 4-year, and Nikon's 5 years, and Tamron's 5 years or 6 years. So it's a little, I don't know why that is, and nobody ever talks about it. And I'm not quite sure what the story is, but the Sigma has at least a 4-year warranty on it, which to me is a bonus. So I would say, if you're interested in these two, if you're going to compare a Nikon or a Canon and a Sigma, go into your store, local store, see if they have them, call them, and try them out. Bring your camera with your card, see if they'll let you shoot them. Go outside, shoot a couple of frames, and take them home, look at them, compare, and make a decision. If you do that, though, I would encourage you to go back to the store and buy the lens. Don't order it online. I mean, that's not fair to go in and take up their time, their resources. They're spending their money to stock the lenses, and then you're going to go in and use up them, we call shopping them, and then go ahead and take that and order it online. So please be at least respectful of that. And if you're going to you go in and have them do a comparison for you. Okay. Let me see here. Let's see, we got, I think, one more question left. Okay. So this is from George, and he says, this must have been asked before, but what advice would you consider the most valuable lesson you learned over the years in photography? Oh boy, that's another big one. These are good questions tonight. Well, my first advice would be, and it's going to sound silly, but shoot. You just have to shoot all the time. The more you shoot, the better you'll get, faster you'll get. And that's one of the great things I love about digital. Now, I mean, my perspective is a little different, by the way. When I say shoot, I don't mean, with your camera. I'm saying what they call, spray and pray. Spray and all these images and hope you're going to get a good one. No. What I'm talking about is go out and shoot every day. Try and keep your camera with you every day and do something. And so and have a project that you're having. Today, I'm going to go out and try and shoot flowers, for example. That will get you better. So one of the great things about digital, I think, is it not that you're going to shoot all these pictures, and it's not that it's not going to cost you anything. It's disk space and software and all this stuff does cost. But what the beauty of digital is you can learn right away. I can see immediately, did I get it? Did I not get it? Am I making a mistake? Oh, that wasn't really what I thought I was going to get. I'm talking about exposure and that type of thing. I'm just talking about the framing and composition. So by having a digital camera, you really can learn much, much faster. I find personally, I actually shoot less. I did a 2-day ad campaign, and I think I only shot 350 pictures the whole 2 days. And the reason is time is money. I don't want to have 2,000 pictures, 3,000 pictures to edit, number one. And number two, I don't want to send a client that bunch of pictures they have to go through. That's just taking up their time. And number three, once I get the picture and I look, okay, I got what they're looking for, I'm going to move on to the next setup, because again, I don't want to just sit there and overshoot, shoot. It's a waste of time. So get where you can try and shoot as few pictures as possible to get the image that you're looking for. The other thing that I would say again is, I mentioned it earlier, the act of seeing. Learn to see, observe everything around you. I don't know, television's kind of ruined for me because I sit there and I'm watching the lighting. I'm obsessed with lighting. I love lighting. I light everything I shoot, and indoor, outdoor, I don't care. And the reason is it gives me complete control. And so, I would suggest that you just go out and learn to see. So in other words, what I'm saying about that, look at it, look at things in real world. Okay. Put your hand up, whatever. Look at the light. Look how the light's falling here. Look how it's here. Look at the shadow. Start to examine how the real world looks. Because when you start doing photography, you're going to want to duplicate that. In other words, if you're going to light it, oh, well, you know what? If I want to light this and I want texture to it, I'm going to light it from the side. And you're going to light it from the side because that's where that's going to create a shadow and the little grooves in the texture. If it's a brick wall, for example, you light a brick wall straight on and take a photo of it, it's going to look flat. But if you light it from the side, it's going to have texture to it. So that's what I'm talking about. Learn, when you see things, look and examine things. Look how things how things work. Oh wow, look how that light's falling over there. Oh wow, look at this. The lines on the car, how they show up. Start to be curious, and that's the biggest thing. I think most good photographers, are just naturally curious people, and so that's one thing. So shoot. Learn to be an active seer. Be a student of light, and last of all, try to develop your own style. Now, again, it's easier said than done because we don't really know. I mean, it's hard to develop your own style. It was hard for me, as I said before, and it only happens over time. But some of the techniques that I tell people to do, my students, is, first of all, it's a little bit like playing a guitar or musical instrument, right? You pick up the guitar and you start learning the chords. Well, that's the same as learning ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. Okay. And so once you learn the mechanics of the camera, then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start you'll get a songbook and you'll start practicing other people's songs. Well, do the same thing with photography. Go to Pinterest, create a board, a couple of private board, public board, it doesn't matter, and find photos you like and drag them into that board and collect them. I do this. I have ones for makeup, one for project ideas, all kinds of things that I find interesting. I collect them, and then I'll go back and look at them. And the next thing I want to do is like, what is it I like about that, and what don't I like? Why am I drawn to that style of photo? Excuse me. And then try and find out what you like about that photo, and then break the photo down. Look at the light, look at the shadow, where the shadow's coming from. Look at the specular highlight. Is there anything, if it's a person, is there a specular highlight in their eye? Where's that light coming from? What's the direction? Break that image down as much as you can to try and analyze what's going on. And that will make you a better photographer. Then the other thing you can do is you can copy it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with copying. So I wonder how they did that. I'm going to try and duplicate it. Maybe it's a product piece or something. You set it up, you play with the lighting, food, whatever. You try and replicate it. Okay, now you'll learn a lot from that. That's not the way you're going to shoot, but it's just an exercise of learning to be able to understand how that was done. And if you do those things, I promise you'll be a better photographer. Forget about the technology and the gear and I'm just so tired frankly, of people talking about this camera and that camera. And, what's this? I'll see people post an image, a beautiful image, and someone, and I'm not being mean. I know they don't know any better. But oh, what lens did you shoot that with? Or what was your settings on your camera? Well, both of those questions are irrelevant. That's like saying, oh, Shakespeare, I wonder what pen he used. He used a quill? What kind of ink did he use? What kind of paper was that on? Doesn't matter. Or let's bring a chef. Okay. You can look at a chef and, Gordon Ramsay. Oh, man, that was a wonderful meal. I wonder what kind of pans he used. What kind of knives you use. If I buy the same stove he does, am I going to be able to cook like that? Absolutely not. It's not about that. It's about you. All the answers are in you. You have the ability to see and to translate that into a photo. It takes work. It's not easy. It takes time. But that will make you a better photographer faster than any gear you have. Now, I say this from personal experience because I have more gear than I could possibly use. And what happens is you buy the gear. It's easy for me to say, right? Because I have the equipment. So I buy the gear. Oh, I got to have this. This is great. I got to have this. And then I look at my photos with a new lens or whatever. And well, guess what? Okay, they're sharper. Okay, maybe the background's a little blurrier, blah, blah, blah. But the pictures aren't any better. They still suck. Well, guess what? That's this problem. That's not the camera's problem. So I would just encourage you to try and shoot, get someone to help you out, mentor you, give you some advice, check that advice with a grain of salt. And it could be, because not everybody, everybody has different styles and things like that. So anyway, that would be my advice to you if you want to do something like that. Okay. I think that's about it for tonight. I don't think I had anything else. Again, I appreciate everyone checking in with us. And if you're watching this on the replay, if you have any questions, again, go through and be sure and shoot me an email at help@photomentor.tv. And you can always join us here next time, of course. Let me see here before I push this button, and I'm going to go crazy here and blow you guys out again. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right. Again, I appreciate everyone's time, and I appreciate you joining me. And if anything I can do to help you, be sure and send me an email. I'd love to work with you any way I can. And thanks for tuning in. See you next week, next Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. Pacific time. And if you're in another part of the world, it would be 1 o'clock UTC, Universal Coordinated Time. Thanks very much.